What is going on, Governor? It's Chisgule here, and today we're going to review a commander tier list for every single legendary commander. That's right, we're going to help you figure out which legendary commander you should be investing in, and this is a pretty important topic. If you like guides where we give you the very best bang for your buck on your commanders, you should definitely like and subscribe, because we're all about that here, and we are a sponsored creator with Rise of Kingdoms. Now, we're going to put up on the screen a whole bunch of reviews. We'll explain them in a second. If you want to follow along, link is in the description to a toolkit that I provide for free to everyone because we care. These are things that I have thought about for myself, and I was like, well, why don't I just organize it so everybody can benefit? One of those things is this legendary commander tier list, which we made with you in a live stream recently. So if you want to hear more of the logic behind these decisions, you should definitely check out the live stream. I'll have a card up in the top, perhaps a link in the description, probably just a card, to explain all of that. Now, before we dive into this, it's worth mentioning a couple things. The rating system we used is as follows. And we should put that up on the screen. The S tier, we call it the savage tier, the very strongest. And we only allow for one S plus per category to sort of differentiate each of the levels. We have a plus and a minus, so we could like show commanders a little bit better or a little less good than the others. A is absolutely use this commander. B is they're better than most for this, but you could probably do better. C is could be better, use a different commander. D is don't use this commander. And F is freaking don't use this commander. Okay, of course, on the legendary tier list, I mean, they all look pretty good across all these different categories. Lowest grade we gave anything is a C. And when you're looking at a list like this, I put an overall rating, but I almost shouldn't have. Because really, you need to look at the individual rating for the type of thing that you want to do really, really well in. What are the categories we looked at? City defense, barbarians and barbarian forts, open field combat, rallying cities, and then rallying or defending objectives. Objectives include flags, alliance fortresses, passes, holy sites. You get the idea. So, the commander that we think is the best overall, not surprisingly, is Saladin. He's not available yet. We think that the very next best set of commanders are Isang Yeh, Richard I, and Hannibal Barca. But let's go look category by category, because I really don't think overall rating is how you should make your decision. So let's go from left to right. We're going to start with city defense. The strongest commanders, in our opinion, are Isang Yeh and Richard I, and also Charles Martel, who I actually have up here. Bada boom. Charles Martel is who we're using at the moment as our primary. And then last but not least, Constantine the monster. And we actually gave Constantine the S+. We've got only one S+ per category. Why do I think Constantine is the absolute best for city defense? Take a look at this here. The expertise skill, 15% attack and 5% defense, seems really, really good to me because it's not specifying a troop type. If I said this a little bit differently, maybe this would help convey how insane this is. What if I said 15% archer attack, 15% cavalry attack, 15% infantry attack, and 15% siege unit attack, and 5% archer defense, 5% infantry defense, 5% cavalry defense, and 5% siege unit defense? That sounds like a really good expertise skill, and that's what this represents. Constantine is a monster, a true monster, when you've got a mixed group, even though he specializes in infantry, and he is quite good with infantry. The other thing we sort of are assuming in this case is that you've got his divine cross, or cross of the divine, not on cooldown, so you can get that monster heal in the middle of the combat. We're assuming that's really, really good. All of that makes Constantine my personal favorite, but they're followed very, very closely, in my opinion, by Richard I and also Charles Martel. They've got a bunch of skills that are relevant, they've got talent trees that are relevant, and it's very much worth calling attention to the fact that, this guide doesn't really get a good look at what are they, the secondary or the primary commander, and ranking them across that. We generally said, what is the best situation we could imagine for them, and we gave them a rating. Sometimes that means they're the secondary, sometimes that means they're the primary. Okay, whew, a lot of caveats. The next category is Barbarian Forts and barbarians that you find in the open field. Now, we rated highly in this category if you could smash barbarians with grace and ease, meaning you had a lot of move speed, or you had a lot of barbarian damage, or you had AoE so that you could aggro lots of barbarians, pull them in as a group, and you get free barbarian kills, which is really, really good experience and loot. At the very top, S tier, is Minamoto. And he's at S plus, in fact, because of the talents that are available to him. Peacekeeping, skill, and cavalry. I mean, these are some sweet, sweet talents. In my perfect world, you use a blend of peacekeeping and skill tree. Peacekeeping and skill tree, probably running up to Undying Fury to get the extra rage gen. Now, he's followed very, very closely by Isang Yeh, who's not a barbarian specialist, but his circle area of effect damage is insane at pulling lots of barbarians, and the value is just out of this world. And of course, Cao Cao makes the list at S tier because he's got a lot of damage to barbarians, really phenomenal for taking out forts. He is currently my primary for taking out forts, but honestly, he's better as a secondary. In my opinion, the cavalry tree is not as good as the skill tree. So if we get a look at the next category, here's where things once again get spicy with commanders that aren't yet introduced into the game. Saladin is, in my opinion, the greatest commander for open field, followed by Minamoto and Charles Martel and Cao Cao and El Cid, all at the S tier. Let's explain why. When we look at which commanders are good in the open field, we're looking for a couple things. Move speed is the #1 factor. It does not matter how good you are at fighting and how strong you are if you can't get to the fight. If you can't get to the fight, it does not matter how strong you are. And if you need to get away from a fight, that is also very, very important, because if you can't get away from a fight, you could have basically half an army die for no value at all. So let's talk about, in fact, you could have a whole army die. I mean, sheesh, I'm thinking of charge talents, but we'll talk about that in a second. Let's talk about why I think Saladin is S plus. First of all, Saladin controls march speed of the enemy. Very, very crucial. He also happens to be countering healing, which is very significant. He gives march speed, which is significant. And he reduces the skill damage he takes and counterattack damage. So if you're getting swarmed, man, like, he is great in the open field to handle that situation. The expertise skill increases the damage and also the march speed reduction, which is amazing. You control that target that you're trying to kill. The thing that really bumps Saladin up to S plus is the fact that he's got the support tree and the cavalry tree. Let's talk about those trees for just a second. If we go look at a commander like Lohar into the support tree, he's got hasty departure, which means he can go jumping from resource node to resource node insanely fast, getting wherever he wants in the map. There's rage generation here galore, which is amazing. And the cavalry tree is really, really good for cavalry. I love the combination of those two trees. Go full cavalry tree with a little bit of support tree. That is spicy. That is spicy. Now, of course, it's not too surprising to see our friend Minamoto in this list. Also, cavalry tree available for charge talents, and those charge talents are the moneymaker. You get below 50% health, you get 30% more march speed, which means you can get the heck out of dodge, besides the fact that cavalry are faster anyways, besides the fact that he's already got 10% march speed to cavalry. Yes, this is an S tier commander, my friends, for the open field. Of course, we would see Cao Cao on this list. He's got more mobility talents. If you wanted to get all over the place, hasty departure would be the way to go with primary cavalry, in my opinion. You could go full mobility with support from cavalry and also be quite spicy in the open field. Two other choices you might not have expected is Charles Martel with the expertise skill for the 20% movement speed. Charles Martel is unique in that he makes infantry viable in the open field, and because everybody else is using cavalry, and they should be, getting that 20% march speed is gangbusters. Totally gangbusters. Now, the commander you certainly didn't expect at the S tier, but truly belongs here is El Cid. Let's talk about this for a second. 15% march speed is amazing. And if you get below 50% health, then you get another 25% march speed. You can get away. I can't tell you how many times I've seen in Arcano Osiris that you've got an army that's just dead in the water because they're out of position. And it's not your fault that you're out of position. It's freaking hard to manage multiple armies all over the place. So, look, getting a solid 40% march speed when you're in trouble, 15% all the time, seems really, really good. That seems really, really good. When I say 40%, that's just the combination of these two. Anyways, the primary skill on El Cid, you might be saying, is not very good. Well, here's the thing. It's almost like a stun. If this read 1 second stun, everybody would love it. The fact is that the target can still move, so it's not quite like a stun, but it's almost as good. My friends, El Cid is great in the open field, even though he doesn't have AoE. Even though he doesn't have AoE. Let's go to the next category, and that category is rallying cities, a topic of interest to many players, I'm sure. At the S+ tier, we have the man, the myth, the legend, the monster, Mehmed II. Mehmed II does extra damage factor to cities, and that's what makes him amazing. He also does AoE, so if you're reinforcing that city, you might just get hit by the AoE. If you try to swarm him while he's attacking the city, you might just get hit by the AoE. He also has increased rally capacity when you're leading an attack against the city, and has extra damage factor against cities, which seems really good. The expertise skill goes even further in smashing cities, giving you an insane amount of damage factor for that one job. He's got great talent trees to aid him in this, and that is why he gets the sweet S+. Following closely in his footsteps is Frederick I, Julius Caesar, and Saladin. Julius Caesar and Frederick have great talent trees available to them for attacking cities, and they've got skills that make them really, really good at that activity. Saladin makes the list because he's got a skill that does huge damage to cities. It makes it so you can't loot them, but man, 15% damage bonus as of the time that this was created anyways seems really, really good. I have a hard time believing that Saladin will stay as strong as he currently is when he goes live, but I guess we'll see. Those are the commanders we think are the very best for rallying cities, but the calculus changes when you're rallying objectives because this, let's see here, this skill that would be relevant to rallying a city is actually not relevant in rallying an objective. When we're talking about rallying objectives, there was one commander that stood above all the others as a universal winner, and that is Hannibal Barca. Hannibal Barca. Hannibal Barca has an expertise skill that does area of effect damage, which is really great. He also does extra work on cities. He gets some healing going on. And look, people look at healing and they're like, oh, it's healing. 1,000 healing is as good as 1,000 damage in most cases. And in fact, when you look at the talents, that healing is buffed. So it's pretty good healing, especially if you add them together with a commander like Richard I, which would be a great pairing. On the topic of Richard I and Isang Yeh, we put together also something sort of interesting. This is the first time we're encountering this, or at least we're talking about it, which is that I listed what it would be like if you rallied with specifically the type of troop that they care about, or with a mixed army. Now, they're both S's, Isang Yeh and Richard, if you rally with archers or infantry, but they're just A's if you rally with mixed armies. Here's why. Richard I could, in fact, be the rally leader with talents from this tree. I don't love it. I don't love it because Snare of Thorns does nothing, but everything else is pretty darn good in the infantry tree, and the defense tree is amazing. A build similar-ish to this you could use for rallying objectives. I don't love it, and it's hard to fill a rally that you use a specific troop type like this, but it's pretty strong if you can make it work. Generally, if I'm choosing between these commanders, Isang Yeh and Richard, or Barca, I probably would just have Barca be the primary and those other guys be the secondary. And the part of the reason that I really like Isang Yeh is that most commanders only have 2 skills that are relevant when you're rallying an objective. I'll show that to you in a second. So the fact that Isang Yeh has 3 skills that are relevant, even if you don't bring full archers, generating 100 rage every 10 seconds is basically this looks like the equivalent of the top of the skill tree. Right? The top of the skill tree is normal attacks have a 10% chance to grant 100 rage. That's really good rage generation, and if you use a commander that's got the skill tree, you are getting just unbelievable rage gen, and you've got a serious rage monster engine. That said, I also love that Isang Yeh has great synergy, elevating the damage of whatever other commander you pair him with. And that's why I've rated Richard the same as him, is that even though Richard actually has more relevant skills, every single skill is relevant in a mixed art rally, I feel like this healing effect enhancement is only so-so. And if you're really rallying, like the Watchtower is going to be irrelevant so fast it almost kind of doesn't matter. Also, the expertise skill here is fine, but it's not as good as Isang Yeh's because we know when you're rallying objectives, there's a non-zero chance that your rally is going to get swarmed, especially in Ark of Osiris, or that you're going to hit some of their folks that are lining up to join into that structure. Pretty exceptional. Now, at the S minus, for rallying objectives, we have Julius Caesar and Frederick. Why are they S minus and not S? Because this 4th skill is completely irrelevant. I'm going to assume you could have filled the rally anyways. The 3rd skill is completely irrelevant. 4th skill on Julius Caesar, completely irrelevant. I'm going to assume you could have filled the rally anyways, right? What's the difference here between Hannibal Barca and those guys is that he gives a damage bonus via expedition, making your second commander do extra damage, which seems really good. It's actually both commanders do extra damage, but you could get a highly elevated skill attack, which is really, really good. And so I personally love this Barca Isang Yeh pairing. I'm going to be using that in Ark of Osiris really soon. Oh yeah, baby. But that's why Barca is an S, and the other ones are an S minus, in my opinion. Barca is slightly better. And it's only slightly, but he is slightly better. Let's get a look at defending objectives. And this is where things get really interesting. Because you'll notice I didn't have an S plus for rallying objectives. I suppose it might be Barca, but I'm not quite there. I'm going to leave room for a better commander to exist for this task because I think they probably do. I just don't think it's not as clear a winner as it was for rallying cities or barbarians and forts or for city defense. It's just not as clear a winner. Now, when we talk about defending objectives, the calculus changes because, first of all, when we look at the talents, Name of the King works when you're rallying stuff, not when you're defending stuff. At least to my knowledge. Yes, when launching a rally attack. There you go. The other thing that I think is really interesting and worth calling attention to is the fact that now, when we're defending an objective, unless you're in Ark of Osiris, in which case Barca is still S tier, he's really only as good as Frederick and Mehmed are. And so, in my opinion, the very best defense you could do is probably going to be Richard I with full infantry or Isang Yeh with full archers. That, I think, is the very best defense you could do. Those are the best commanders you could use. Now, the thing is, even though they're both S tier, I would not pair them together because they're both care about different troop types. And yeah, I probably would not pair them together. I mean, you could use Isang Yeh as the secondary and Richard the primary and bring full infantry. I don't know. Here's what I'll say. When we look at the skill tree, this is really good. Even if you didn't have full archers, and you had a mixed army, you're still getting really good value. You go over here, Razor Sharp, you get even more rage. That seems really good. You go up here, Venomous Sting makes it so that you're doing even more damage. So I would pick 2 commanders that do a lot of damage and put them together, especially if you can get full archers. That would be pretty good. There's not that many talents we've taken, if we go this route, that are primarily focused on archers. If you did go full archer tree, which is a risky thing to do, because if somebody brings the wrong troop type, you lose out on this benefit, I do think that Phoenix Tail Arrows is pretty darn sweet. It's pretty darn sweet, but it has to be a rally led only by, or a rally containing, or a city defense containing only archers. So I think you could go full archers, but that's such a hard thing to do. I would probably use Skill Tree and Venomous Sting and Razor Sharp, assuming that there's even enough talent points to do all that. There might not be. You get the idea. Whew. So, my friends, that is Chisgule's rankings for legendary commanders. Will these change over time? Yes. We will timestamp it. You should come back and look at this. We did these rankings as of 4/5/2019, so it's probably changed. Link is in the description. If you found this helpful, like this video. This took extra work compared to other videos, so please do like, subscribe, share with all your friends, and until next time, my friends, you have fun smashing the kingdom.